All right, guys. Hello. It is December 6th here, and we're going to get cooking. A lot of new people coming on still from the Black Friday special. Pretty awesome. So, welcome to everyone new. We'll probably have more people popping on here in a minute, usually some latecomers. Anyway, one of the things I wanted to cover, because especially since there's so many new people in the group right now, is kind of the fast track. Everybody is looking for the fast track. So I wanted to kind of hit that today and talk a little bit about influencer marketing. I'm going to probably do a special call on that next week because that is it's really been a hot topic, because for one, it's a way to get free traffic instantly without waiting for SEO, without paying for big ad budgets, all that kind of stuff. So if you're in a market where there's influencers, that's going to be like a gold mine for you. So we're going to cover that. There's a cool piece of software out there that will actually not only find the influencers, but find the influencers that have engaged audiences. And that's really the key. A lot of people kind of spin their wheels doing that because they don't really know the concept behind it. They go out, and the biggest mistake that they make is looking for influencers with huge audiences. And it's much more important that they have an engaged audience. I'll take a small audience that's engaged over a huge audience any day of the week. So that's going to be something we'll cover next week. I'll put a special call together for that. I'll run through the influencer software, show you how that works, and basically just cover that whole process of how to do that. But anyway, it's instant traffic, it's free traffic. Sometimes you have to pay the influencer, but what I would recommend is setting up some sort of a commission deal with them. So they only get paid if you make a sale. It's almost like an affiliate offer. So it's a great way to find affiliates that are like ready to go right now. Also wanted to kind of cover a little bit about the RainMaker beta launch. A lot of people are really fired up about that. They've been waiting a long time for this. We finally got that into the mobile version. And for those of you that are not familiar with what that is, it's the software that we developed. We started developing this in 2011. And effectively what it does, it manipulates Google's algorithm, their new algorithm called RankBrain, which is artificial intelligence. So it feeds data up to that system, so Google figures out on its own, hey, this site is hot, we should be posting this at the top. So that's what it does. You know, when I say we've got a beta launch, this is actually a new version of it. We've been running that software on desktop computers since 2011 very effectively. For all of my commercial accounts, my commercial SEO customers, that has been the only thing that has moved the needle. And as far as I know, we are the only one that has it. A lot of people have talked about the concept, but we actually made it come to life. It's been very hush-hush. It hasn't been out in the public. You can't find it anywhere. It's really only been available to our network, our members. So the difference in the new one, when I call this a beta launch, this is a new version of the same network, but it's got a lot more functionality to it. We understand a lot more about the algorithm now, what it's looking for, and how to effectively manipulate it, and that's all in the new version. One of the biggest things is the explosion of mobile. You know, Google sees if everything's on desktop and there's no mobile activity, it just doesn't look natural anymore. So our new network covers mobile devices, not only Android, but also Apple, which was a huge hurdle to get over, to get this app built on the Apple platform. And we're still having a little bit of a battle with the Apple Store to get this thing authorized. They want more functionality. We've kind of wrapped the wolf in sheep's clothing here. When you look at the app from the outside, it's a marketing app to look at your site, analyze your site, and find out if it's crawlable and your load speeds. And basically, if it's not, it'll show you if you have broken links, It will also show you the speed of the crawl through your site. And so you can improve that, because mobile users now are very finicky. They want fast loading sites. They want things in a particular way. And Google is tapped into that. Google's figured out, you know, what does a good user experience look like? Biggest thing on mobile is speed. So this app is hidden as an app to discover vulnerabilities in your load speeds. So it's crawling the sites. That's how we've got it through the system of what it is. So they're actually behind it. The only thing was we had a link on the app in the Apple app, that when you click the link, it goes to a different site that feeds you up all this data and statistics. They wanted it inside the app. So we're just redoing that piece of it right now, and then once that's approved, it'll actually be downloadable right from the App Store in Apple, the Apple App Store. It's already up in the Android stores, it's in the Microsoft Store, Google Apps, all of that, it's already there. So anyway, that's what it does. And then another bigger functionality of it is it will, the last version, you had to put a keyword in that you already ranked for. So that worked great because it showed searches being done. And I told everybody, just put your brand name in there because you always rank for that. It will make the connection. But this version, we've taken it a step further. Now, we'll actually run a search for a keyword you want to rank for, but you don't currently rank for. Google doesn't have you listed, so in the app, it's scrolling through the Google search results looking for you. When it doesn't find you, it goes back and it revises your search to have the same keyword plus your brand. Then you come up, then it clicks on it, and then it goes through the site and gives you the positive user experience. In effect, what we're doing, we're feeding information up to Google that when somebody looks for this keyword, they're looking for this brand. So it makes that connection. And basically, at this point, most people, or most small businesses rather, don't have brand recognition. If you look at the search results now, at this point in time, almost every search result coming up is a big brand. It's because of the brand connection. So that's what this tool is doing. It's creating brand connection for the small business. So what that means is we can now level the playing field. So that's basically what it's all about. So for those of you that are new to it, I would really recommend that you hop on that, get in and start playing with it before we go live, because we have the beta test up right now. It's free. You can get in there. You can sign up for an account and you can use it to its full extent right now. Once we do the actual launch, the beta users will be restricted. So right now it's wide open. So you guys can go in there. I'm going to put in the chat box, I'm going to put the link in case you guys didn't get it yet. So that's the link to sign up and create an account. Watch the video before you start filling the thing out. I did a full complete video on exactly how to fill it out to get the best use out of it. So check that out. Go ahead, sign up, get that thing going. Another thing I want to cover in the training for those of you that are new going through the training for the first time, just recently Google has pulled the display planner out. They have, I don't know if they've killed it or if they just hid it for high-paying customers, which they do that stuff all the time. But as far as the lesson on the Google Display Planner, it's still good content just for the concept, but the tool no longer exists. So you won't be able to click, you know, into Google and actually use the tool as I'm showing you in the training. So up to you whether you decide you want to skip that or look at it just for the content, just for what we were looking for. And we've added the new tool called the Facebook Audience Finder. That's a new tool that's free for you guys. All you have to do is just send me an email or send a support ticket in, and I'll get you connected with that tool so you can use it for free. And it kind of does the same thing. It's telling you if there's audiences out there. It doesn't give you the depth of knowledge like the display planner was as far as the demographics for, how much they were making and, all of that kind of stuff, income levels and all that good stuff. But it's a great tool to verify markets and show you, what's hot, what's popular. So that takes that place. Another thing I wanted to cover here, I'm going to be adding we talked about this last week, and I've got the files. I'm going to add those up probably later this afternoon into the training in the very beginning, which is the freedom formula. And the reason that I do the freedom formula is because a lot of people come into the program and they've never done this stuff before, and they don't have the belief that it can really do what it will do. And because of that, they won't put the time in to actually do the work. They don't connect, this block of time to an outcome that is phenomenal. And that's what the freedom formula lesson actually, it fixes that. That's a mind block. So in essence, just, kind of a brief outline of what that is. It's going through what your ideal lifestyle look like. If you could wave a magic wand and have all the money coming in that you wanted, all the income streams and cash flow, it's walking through that. What would that look like? How would that change your life? Where would you live? What kind of house would you live in? What kind of car would you drive? All of that stuff. And everything that's in there, we put a price to. And basically, we're coming up with, it's kind of like dreaming. It's dreaming in full color. It's like, if I could have the life I wanted, what would it cost? Because most people don't know that. They don't associate cost, so they don't associate how much they have to make to get there. And most people think they think it's just not possible. And it's just math. It really is math. And with business, it's about creating cash flow, creating customers, customer flow to create the life that you want. So it's a life-changing formula. Once you see that, you see, hey, this really is possible, and it's not that hard. It's just simple math. So you look at what your life would cost. What's your dream life cost monthly? We put a figure to it, and this is the same thing with conversion. If you guys are doing marketing and you don't know your numbers, you're lost in the forest. You don't have any idea which way is up, and that's where most people are. They don't know their numbers. Business is about math. Simple, plain and simple math. So this is getting the first number of the equation for your freedom formula is, what is your ideal life cost? Next, we look at, okay, what do you have to offer? What do you have to sell, and how much profit is in that? Each item sold, how much profit do you have? Now you can see where this is going. This is filling in, this is like an algebraic formula, X plus Y equals Z. So if we know what your life costs and we know the profit in the units that you sell, we know how many units you have to sell to live that life. Now is when you go to work. This is where the ACT formula delivers on that. We look at, what do I talk about first in ACT? The profitable market segment. First thing we want to know, is the market big enough to support your sales needs? That's why we need the freedom formula numbers. We need to know how many of these things do you have to sell? To get to it's like the Tootsie Pop. How many licks does it take to get to the center of the Tootsie Pop? That's what we're trying to figure out here. So anyway, I'm going to put that in there. It's kind of a cool little exercise to go through. And whenever I do it at a live event, it blows people's minds. They're like, oh my God, I really could get that lifestyle. It's not that hard. I just have to sell X amount of units. And that's what makes the work worthwhile. That's where when you, when you look at the work involved in ACT, it's like, okay, I'll do that. It's worth it to me to do the work to get the outcome. But if you don't see the outcome up front, you're not attaching it to the work, it just looks like a lot of work that you don't want to do. And that's what happens with most people. They buy into programs and they're like, oh, I got to do work? Well, I don't see the value. You know, the value is in that what you want in life. That's why you're doing it. So that's why I created it, to kind of attach the outcome to the work to help you guys get through it. Because it is. I mean, anybody that's actually gone through and created a successful marketing campaign, you know, it's not just snap your fingers and we're there. Some of you guys are doing this with me and you're seeing, you know, it's a lot of work. Is it worth it? Absolutely. Because what's the alternative? You could just go get a day job and work for somebody else and be a slave and never, you know, that's easy math too. And I can tell you where it goes. It'll keep you in one little box and you'll never get out. You know? So anyway, I don't want to just kind of belabor that, but I just wanted to tell you that's what it is. So it's worth a run through. I'll put it up. You guys can go through and do the exercise. Let's see here. Many of you have seen Anthony on the thing. We call him the caped converter. He's often wearing Batman gear. He is going to soon be offering Facebook services for anybody that wants to venture over into the Facebook thing and not do the work. He's got a team. He's been doing Facebook ads for quite some time. So that's going to be available to you guys also. But anyway, so let me kind of wrap back around. If any of you guys have questions, if you're stuck on something in particular, just go ahead and unmute and just, you know, fire away. If you've got something, if you want to put it in the chat or just, you know, raise your hand, wave at me, we'll get right to it. I have no problem with interruptions. So, and no, there is no bad questions here. You know, if you're thinking of something and, you know, you want an answer to it, there's other people that maybe they haven't even thought of it yet, but it's important to them. So please don't hold back. Anything you've got, throw it out here. So at this point, I want to hit the fast track because I know that's important to everybody here, especially the new people. You're jumping in, you want to know, you know, what's the quickest way to get to the rainbow, you know? We want to get the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. So analysis is ominous. That whole section is going to be very ominous for you guys when you look at it at first. It's going to prevent a lot of people from moving forward because you don't understand it. It is ultra important because if you look at ACT, A-C-T, it's analysis, creation, and traffic. You cannot effectively create anything unless you know the market. You've got to have that analysis. You have to know who it is you're talking to. You've got to know what their problems are, how you can solve it, all of that. So when you're creating websites, you're creating marketing materials, and you don't have that stuff figured out, you're wasting your time and your money. You know, I see people all the time, they spend a bunch of money to get a beautiful website done, but it doesn't address the mark because they don't know who they're even talking to. So the first piece of analysis, like I said, is segmentation. It's figuring out what's the most profitable market. That's really important because you guys, once you figure this out, you're going to build a lot of marketing campaigns. You're going to hit a lot of different avatars. You know, some of you have different age groups, people, or ages of groups of people that you're targeting. Every age group speaks a different language. You know, if it's men and women speak a different language. So those are segments. You want to figure out of all the segments that you could possibly hit, which one's the most profitable, because that's the one we want to do first. If you guys try and do 10 at once, you'll never get anything done. You'll never get one up and running. So figure out what's the most profitable segment and let's build a campaign to that one. Once we get that done and it's actually making money, it's so easy to duplicate it, change the languaging slightly, and now you've got a working campaign for 2 audiences. That means twice as much money. You know, maybe not twice as much, but it's an additional revenue stream. So getting to that freedom formula is all about creating revenue streams. How many do we need? It's just math, just simple numbers. So once, so anyway, that's the first step, is figuring out what's the most profitable segment. Step 2, the second step here, is the timeline. It's figuring out your ideal customer, which is your avatar. That's just a representation of your ideal customer. Your avatar, we need to get inside his head. We need to figure out, who is this guy or gal? How are they feeling? What's their problem? What challenges are they facing? And what do they want? And that's the timeline. The timeline at position A is where they are. This is where they are right now, how they're feeling, what they're up against, problems. Sometimes they don't even know what those problems are. So we have to bring it forth and create the problem for them. and that's where they are. I'll give you a really good example of that in a minute. But on the other end of the timeline is their desired outcome. This is where they want to be. This is where, if they could wave a magic wand and transport themselves, it's that point in time. It's that transformation. If they're overweight and they want to be thin, that's the end point on the line. The other thing you want to look at is, why do they want it? Why do they want that feeling? What's it going to do for them? Like in business, a lot of times people will be unclear of why they want to go into business. And typically for males and females, it's different. If you're a male, I can almost guarantee you it's about significance. If you go down, if you follow the rainbow to the end of the line, like if you ask somebody, why do you want to run your own business? They'll give you an answer and it's superficial. And you say, really? Well, what do you want that for? Maybe they say they want more money. You say, oh, well, what are you going to do with the money? If you keep asking what they're going to do, what they're going to do, what they're going to do, the end of the line is going to come out to some sort of significance that's important to them. Like they want to be the king. They want to be the king of their world. They don't want their wife to have to work. How cool would it be to say, hey, honey, you can go ahead and quit your job. I'm making plenty of money. I got this covered. That's significance, because they want to be worshiped and idled. And that sounds out there, but I'm telling you, it's real. When they say they want to be able to go to the beach and all that, what they really want is they want their friends to envy them. They want everybody to go, man, I wish I was like you. How did you do that? That is at the bottom of that pile, if you get down to it. And with women, it's very different. It's all about security. Women, a lot of times, and this isn't 100% accurate for everyone, but for most cases, it is. It's pretty much human nature. So women are security based. They want to not have to worry. They want to not fear. They want to be sheltered. They want to, and again, I'm not talking about every woman here. I'm talking about the average woman. When you're talking about high functioning women in business, powerful women, they're more like men. The significance might play a bigger role in that. But anyway, so that's what you want to find out, because when you're writing your copy, it's really important to understand that stuff. That's going to unleash the buying triggers of why they want your product. It might be some sort of freedom. Like Don is on here. He's a new member. He does driver's training. That's a freedom. If you're a young kid, what do you want? Why do you want to drive? You want freedom. So if you tap into that, and another thing is you have to make sure that who you're targeting, like in that case, in that instance, he is not selling the course more than likely to the student. He's probably selling it to the parent. So you got to figure out why they want their kid to have a license. Why they want them to be safe on the road. That comes down to safety. Your children are they're your pride and joy. You want to protect them. So if you position the product as, hey, if you put your kid through this course, they're going to drive safe. There's going to be much less chance they're going to get in an accident, and That means less headache for you and their safety and their future. So that kind of stuff. So it's really important. The whole reason we do analysis is to get to the bottom of that. What does all that stuff mean? Where are they at? What are they feeling? And what's their desired outcome? Even if they don't know it, it's your job to figure out what it should be and implant that in them, which will tie them to your product. So marketing is all about creating demand and desire. So that's why we need to know this stuff. We need to know what's important to them so we can create that demand and desire and attach it to your product. So that's the timeline, and that is really a crucial piece to all of this, figuring that out. Once you got the timeline, I told you I'd come back to an example. If, like an example of showing somebody they have a problem when they don't know it, they might not know it, but you need to show them they have a problem. And I'll use myself as an example of how I used to sell SEO so effectively. I would go into a business owner's office, sit down and have a conversation with them, and I'd basically ask them about their business. Wouldn't talk about SEO at all. I'd ask them about their business. I'd ask them about who's their ideal client. And when they can get new clients like that, how does that improve their business? How much money do they make? A new client, what's that worth? And once we establish that, I ask them a simple question. I say, thinking about that client, if they were to go online and look for you, what would they type in? And they feed me a keyword. They say, I think they would type this in. So I say, okay, well, let's check something out. Let's do a test here. Let's pull up Google and type that in and see what happens. So they type it in. Again, I'm planting the seed. I'm allowing them to self-discover their own problem. They type that keyword in, and all of a sudden, they're not there. And I say, well, do you recognize any of these people that are coming up? And they're like, oh, yeah, I know all of them. They're all my competitors. And I'm like, what do you figure that's costing you to not be there? Because they've already answered the question. Their ideal client is typing this in, and they're not there. They just discovered a huge problem. I just ripped a hole in them 3 feet wide. They're bleeding. And 5 minutes ago, they didn't know they had that problem. So if you can do that, if you can figure out what that is with your ideal customers on their timeline and help them discover their own problem, you'll be really, really effective. If you can ask questions, if you can ask the right questions to allow them to discover they've got a 3 feet hole in them and they're bleeding, they're going to want to stop the bleeding as fast as possible. And next, you take them into the next piece, and that is education-based marketing. At this point, you're showing them how they can fix the problem by using your solution. You're basically showing them how you become the ideal solution for their problem. So the first step to doing this is what's called the big idea. When you go into the creation piece, there's a lesson on the big idea. I guarantee you will not come up with a good big idea if you haven't done this first piece of analysis yet. You've got to know where they are. You've got to know what they want. If you got those two things, making the big idea, coming up with that will be easy. If you don't, it'll be impossible. That's the contrast. So you really want to do your analysis piece. You want to get that down. All right, so again, analysis, create the timeline. The timeline will feed the big idea. The next thing we want to do, after we get the big idea, that's the front end. That's where they come in. That's our client acquisition piece. That's our first piece to that. Then we want to skip to the offer. We want to get the front end and we want to get the back end. And then we're going to fill in the middle. So the offer is, okay, let's say they want what we've got. We've eliminated the objections. We're now ready to make the offer. So that's the next piece in the sequence, is creating the offer. Once you have your beginning and your ending, got your big idea and your offer, that's beginning and end. Once you've got that in place, next is to create what is called an education-based marketing system. And sometimes that could be just a simple sales letter. Sometimes it could be like a 45-minute to an hour-and-a-half webinar if you need to demonstrate stuff. Sometimes it's a sequence. Sometimes it's a process. If you want to know how big that has to be, how long it has to be, you can typically look at what's the cost of your item. You know, if you've got a really simple item, it's $19.95, it's 29 bucks, whatever, you could probably do that with a very short email. You could probably attach the benefits, say it doesn't cost much, it's going to do all this stuff, boom, that's over. You know, if you've got something that's you're selling for, you know, 199 bucks, 299, 999, in that range, you're going to have to go a little deeper. You're going to have to walk them down the path a little bit more so they see the value. Because it's all about building the value. When you can create more value than your cost, you got a winner. You know, when you can show them how it saves them money or it adds enough value that it's a no-brainer, that's what you want to strive for. So, you know, depending on, you know, what that is, what that number is, how big it is, that's what you got to look at. You know, you might need multiple webinars. You might want to break your thing up into segments. You know, if you've got, let's say you've got a $10,000 item, you might want to break up the segments and say, hey, you know, this is a big problem that you're probably experiencing, and it's followed by another big problem. So let's address the first one first. So you might want to do like a 1-hour webinar on that. And then at the end of that, you know, you solve the first piece for them and you say, hey, you know, join us tomorrow. We're going to cover the next section. By the time you get through the sections, they're going to know, hey, I got to have this thing, even though it is $10,000. And if you can build the value up to where they think it's going to be even more, then it's a no-brainer when you come to the offer. Like Frank Kern did this when he sold Mass Control. He did a 4-week series, and all the way through the series, you literally felt like you had to have this thing, and it didn't matter how much it was going to cost. He positioned it as though it was going to be $10,000 sale. And you were, by the time you were at the end of that, you felt like it doesn't matter, you know, what, I've got to come up with this money. I've got to have this or I'm not going to survive. And then when he finally made the offer, he had a scarcity piece to it. He said, I'm only selling 1,000 of these. I had 1,000 units printed. They're going to ship out, and that's it. It's never going to be available again. And when he made the offer, the thing that you thought was going to be 10 grand, and you were already kind of prepped for that, figuring out how am I going to make this happen, then he came out and he said it's $2,000, 1997. He sold out 1,000 units in 20 minutes. $2 million in sales in 20 minutes with that model. You know, it was a 4-week process. Some of you that are familiar with the internet marketing space, you'll know that as the launch formula, product launch formula by Jeff Walker. He's the one that developed that series, that sequence, that 4-step process of releasing 4 1-hour videos back to back, you know, 1 a week or 1 every few days, building up to that offer. He's the one that actually put that formula together. That's what Frank used for that launch for his Mass Control product. And I got to tell you, the product itself, it wasn't worth anywhere near $2 grand. It was basically just how to email your list. That was what the product was. But since it was marketed so well, no one complained, no one returned it. You know, and again, $2 million in sales in 20 minutes from a really good marketing system, marketing campaign. So that's the fast track formula. Those are the things that you literally have to do to put a really effective marketing campaign together. You've got to do the analysis so you can create the timeline and understand who that person is. You know, next you got to come up with a big idea. You've got to come up with an offer, and then you've got to fill in the gap. You know, the gap is your marketing-based system, education-based marketing system. And there's lessons on each piece of this in the training. I recommend you guys go through those multiple times, because every time you go through it, you're going to glean off more. You're not going to learn this stuff on a one-shot through basis. But the beauty of it, it's there for you whenever you need it. You know, when you start writing copy, go through and watch those lessons again. When it comes time for you to do your big idea, go through the big idea tutorial again. Make it fresh. Have it fresh in your mind. Have the worksheet out. It's literally fill in the blanks. There's 3 key components to the big idea, and they're right there on the worksheet. I've given you the tutorial with like 20 different examples of great big ideas from throughout history, where I break down what the 3 things are in each one. So you can identify them, you can see them, you can see how it all works together, and then you can create your own. Should be very easy for that. Like with the apprentice members, I actually help them create the big ideas. They do the research, they fill out the worksheet, and then I piece it together for them. And it's so easy for me to do when that work is done. It's like I can do it literally in minutes when they hand me that worksheet. So, and then once they see how it's done, this is something you want to get good at. It's a learned skill. It's not hard to do. And it's so worthwhile. I mean, this is the stuff that will grow your business. This is the real stuff. If you don't have this stuff, you'll never be able to grow your business. I guarantee it. If you look at any successful business out there, they all operate using the same system. You know, I didn't make this up. I am just taking what's been successful, packaging it up, and making it understandable for you guys so you can use it. But it's, you know, it's by no means something I came up with or developed. I've observed it, I've documented it, and I've made it understandable so you can actually put it to work in your business. So anyway, that's the fast track, you know. And like I said, it is work. Anybody that's been through it, anybody that's going through it now, they will tell you it's the first one is hard. It's a lot of work, you know. But once you get it, you understand that you've got that tool in your tool belt, you will be so much more valuable to your business. You'll be able to look at ideas and go, yeah, that's not a good idea. There's no market for it. I'm not doing that. You know, I see so many people change their business once they figure this stuff out and they know how to identify it. They'll look and they'll say, oh, well, the market's not big enough. I can't tell you how many, before I really got this stuff under my belt, I can't tell you how many different business ventures I went into, and every time I would just take a bath. I would just lose more and more money. And, you know, every time I got a winner, it all followed the system. Every time I had a loser, it didn't. It's just that simple. When I do private consulting, I can go into, you know, almost any business and not know a thing about the business. I can find the problem within 3 buckets. It's either a market problem, it's a message problem, or it's a traffic problem. And that follows ACT exactly. You know, analysis, that's your market. If you have a problem with a market, that's gonna break the system. Next is creation. That's your message. If your message doesn't match the market, if you're not speaking their language, you're done. It's over. You know, you're never going to make it. You're not going to convert. So traffic on the other end, if you don't have the message right and you're not converting, all the traffic in the world's not going to do a thing. So it's like I said, you know, when I do that private consulting for businesses, it's always, the problem is always found in one of those 3 buckets. It's either the market, the message, or the traffic. You know, in some cases, they got the market right, they got the message right. They're all primed, ready to go. They just don't have traffic. That is the most rare situation that I find. Generally, they have traffic. They're spending money. They're pouring money in the machine over here, but they don't have the market right, or they don't have the message right. And it doesn't matter how much traffic they get, it's not going to solve the problem. Traffic is only valuable if you can convert it to cash. You know, and this is the system. This is the way you do it. Also, if you guys are interested in SEO and you're interested in free traffic from Google, this is the keys to the kingdom. Conversion, it's user experience. If you can land somebody on your site and walk them through the site, and they spend time, they click, they go deeper, they go to multiple pages. That's what Google is seeing now for their RankBrain algorithm. And you know, that's what they are identifying as a good user experience. So anyway, that's it. Any questions now?
John,
Yeah,
hey, John.
go ahead, Anthony.
I wanted to, you were talking about Frank Kern, and I had a question.
Sure.
I've been going through your videos the past 6 months to try to catch up. Yeah. And in one, there was one session you were doing, you were talking about email deliverability, and you talked about Frank Kern. The discussion was about Frank Kern, Mike Filsaime, Perry Belcher. And I try to pay attention to those guys because I feel sort of an affinity, because I'm doing, some of my businesses are vitamins and supplements, as we talked about, high-risk businesses. Now, Kern, and you know, I think you know some of these guys personally.
Yeah, I know all of them.
Oh, okay. And they've had their own, I've never had a regulatory problem, but I think they all have had regulatory issues in the past. Mm-hmm. People see them coming from a mile away, especially when they deal with email companies, with hosting and all that stuff. You were talking about email deliverability, and you said that somebody asked you, how does, with their reputation or the stigma, whether it's fair or unfair, about what Filsaime does, what Frank Kern does, what Perry Belcher, their background. You were talking about how, in terms of emails, how important that is to marketing. You said that they know how to get emails delivered because they've been doing it from the beginning and they know how to do it. Can you elaborate on that in terms of the technical aspects? Sure. Maybe not so much, you know, I think everybody on the call is aware, you know, the things about subject titles. You don't want to put spam words in emails. I think we're all pretty familiar with that. What technically are those guys doing that they know how to do it correctly? That they know how to get emails delivered into inboxes?
Sure. And this is going to be something that's important for everybody. And Gary just learned this lesson kind of the hard way. He's on the call today. He imported his customer list into Kartra, and he did an email blast out to the customer list through Kartra, and Kartra blackballed him. They said, you're not allowed to use our mail system anymore because you've got a poor reputation. And that's going to be the same across the board. If you're using like, you know, MailChimp or Aweber or any mail service, you have the chance of getting blackballed if you don't do it right. And it all comes down to email server reputation. If your email server, it has a reputation score. So it might be between, you know, 1 and 100. And different email providers, if your score is not high enough, they will block you at the server. So like AOL is notorious for this. If you've got customers on AOL, you may not be able to get mail through to them unless your reputation on your mail server is really good. So how you get that reputation is multiple facets. There's multiple variables that they look at to score that reputation. First of all is bounce rate. If you've got a bunch of bad email addresses in your list, you want to make sure you clean that. Delete them. They're not going to get any better. If they're bad today, they're not going to magically be good tomorrow. You know, they've canceled that account. It's no longer good. It's no longer valid. So if you're getting a bunch of bounce emails of, you know, user doesn't exist, you need to get them out of your list, because every time you send and that bounces back, they're keeping score. They're like, how clean is this guy's list? You know, if you got 10% bounce back, you're done. You know, you're not getting through AOL. They're gonna, even if that's not bouncing from AOL members, they're going to see that reputation score out there and they're going to say, no, that guy's dirty. We're not letting him through our wall. So reputation, email reputation on your server is crucial. Another thing that can help positively on your email reputation is how many people respond. So that's why you'll see a lot of emails where you have to click to get more information. That's where Perry is really good. That's where Kern is really good. That's where these marketers are awesome, because when they send email, they've got compelling offers that you want to click on, that you want to respond to. You know, they've got some where you'll see a lot of them where it'll say, reply back with a yes if you'd like this. So they're not necessarily sending you through a link. They're getting you to respond back. They have an auto response system that when it comes back with an email that says yes, it automatically responds back and sends them the deliverable. So if you can generate that user interaction, because if you think about it, what does a normal person do? They'll send an email out to somebody, like I'll send an email to you, Anthony, and what happens? You respond back, right?
Right.
That's natural. That's real communication. Now, if I send out 10,000 emails and no one responds back, what does that say about me? I'm a spammer. So they're looking at that stuff. They're looking at engagement. It's AI. It's just like Google's Rank Brain. They've all got it. It's nothing new. And they're using that to score to see who they should let through and who they shouldn't. Like companies like Verizon, all of the big service providers, AT&T, AOL, any big service provider is going to be the worst. They're going to block stuff just by default. You know, so that is one of the big things. I have always been kind of anti-Gmail throughout the years. I've given up on that. I'm no longer fighting the Gmail thing. I'm not discouraging anyone from using Gmail. In fact, Gmail's deliverability is phenomenal. If you've got Gmail, like if we have people that can't get email through to us, we'll tell them, you know, let's send it through Gmail because it always gets delivered. My trepidation in the past about Gmail was, you know, Gmail, when you're on Gmail, they have access to your mail. They are looking at it. You know, if you get an email about something, you're going to see some ad following you about that because you opened it and you read it. You know, they know everything about what you're doing. And like guys in the SEO industry over the, you know, in the past, I'm like, you guys are nuts using Gmail. You know, you're talking to your clients. You're talking about SEO. They know what you're doing. You know, you're crazy to be doing that stuff. It's like, why don't you just pull your pants down and let them have their way with you? You know, but at this point, if you're marketing, you know, I still say that about SEO. I go, any of you guys that are in SEO and you're putting stuff that's SEO related across Gmail, you're out of your mind. You know, you're just flat crazy. But marketing, you know, that's a different thing. Google's cool with marketing. You know, they're good with anything that creates a positive user experience. So Gmail is a great one for deliverability. They're very tight and they're very strict. They've got filtration, you know, that it will look for people that are big complainers. Like if, let's say you send a list out through Gmail and you've got, say, 1,000 people on it. They're going to scan that. Every email going out off their server, they're going to scan. If they see that email is going to a complainer, it's just going to go poof. It's just going to go up in smoke, and you'll never know it. But that's how they protect their reputation. So if you're on your own private email server and you're not doing that, and you're just sending your list out and it's got a bunch of bounces on it, over time, you're just going to create a bad reputation, so most of your email will not be getting delivered.
Right. Yeah, I'm not using a private mail server right now. I'm using I'm rotating 3 different, because it seems like Aweber will get certain emails delivered, but the ISPs will block certain Awebers.
Yeah.
SendGrid is another one I have.
Okay.
And
How
same ISP.
is SendGrid?
It's very good. I think it's more professional than Aweber. I get better deliverability on SendGrid.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. That was actually what they recommended to Gary, that he switched to SendGrid.
Okay.
So that's what I heard. That's why I asked, how it's been for you. So that's cool.
Yeah. So you're saying like these guys, like they would have their own servers? Is that another key? Their private mail servers, or they just use the same company?
They were doing that for a while, but what they found, like a lot of them use Infusionsoft, and Infusionsoft does not have a good reputation for email deliverability.
Yeah, I didn't get a lot of emails delivered with that either. I had problems with Infusionsoft, and I stopped using Infusionsoft.
Yeah. So what the guys are doing that are really at the front end of the sword, the guys that are at the cutting edge, they will actually send their mail out using a different server. Like they won't use the Infusionsoft server for outgoing mail. They'll use, like a SendGrid server, something that has a good deliverability, and that way they'll get their mail out. Because if you don't get your mail out, you might have a big list, but if none of the people are receiving the mail, how good does that,
Right.
Doesn't do you a lot of good. The guys at Kartra, they're very tight. Like my list, I can tell you, I didn't import anything into Kartra. I put opt-in boxes. All of you guys that are in my Kartra database, you all opted in at some point to get in there. Either you signed up for a program or you signed up for something free that I was offering. And it's funny because I'll look through my database and some of them will be red flagged that they're not sending email, and it'll actually show me who's not getting my mail, and it'll show me why. And some of them are from a hard bounce. Like if you put a bad email address in to opt in for one of my offers and it creates a record with a bad email address, they know that and they just won't send mail to it. So, but some of you, I had some actual customers on there and I realized, hey, these customers are not getting my call reminders. What's up with that? And I had to contact them and say, hey, why am I not able to get mail through to this particular customer? And I actually found myself on the list once. I had been flagged and it just said blacklisted. And I'm like, the hell is that? Why did I get blacklisted? And, when I contacted them, they came back with the same thing. They said, we've noticed you've sent mail from a server that has a bad reputation. And it just happened to be, I have a shared mail server. At the time, I had a shared mail server. And one of my clients had sent out a bunch of garbage mail that all bounced. And it took the reputation of my mail server down, and they caught that and flagged me. So they wouldn't send my mail through to me, which I found that was kind of interesting. So now I've separated myself out. I've got myself on my own private mail server so that, the other customers on the server are not affecting my mail reputation. So anyway, that's kind of how that stuff all works.
So John,
yeah,
this is Glenn. So I'll just share something that happened with me that will kind of piggyback on this conversation. Yeah, I used to use Constant Contact and then MailChimp, and per recommendations of different people that I was working with marketing in the past. And when I started working with Michael Stevenson, when we were right about ready to launch things, we had noticed that it's almost like I lost 75% of my list. Like it's almost overnight, the deliverability went from very high with the industry standards down to almost nothing. Mm-hmm. And we switched to, I'm on ClickFunnels, so ClickFunnels with Actionetics and using SendGrid. And then we set up a private IP. And now, since I'm the only one sending from that, my sender score is 99 out of 100 at this point. Yeah, so that private IP through them, knowing that I'm not going to be sending out, crap emails and spam, was like a game changer for me. So that might be helpful for somebody as well.
Yeah, that's exactly what they look at. What is your score? I think they rate it from 1 to 100. And, there's a lot of things that can affect that. The engagement of the emails, the bounce rate. If you have spammy titles, like one of the things that they look at as a spammy title is using all caps. If you use a title, it's all caps, that to them, that looks like spam. Because if you think about it, I wouldn't send you guys an email with all caps. If you were sending your mom an email, you wouldn't send it to her with all caps. So that's what they look at. Who's trying to shout, at the top of their lungs? Those are spammers. So that's a factor. Another thing I wanted to cover, this is for Don. He's doing a new member, and he's doing a online training for driver's education training. And his question was on his site. I did a site review for him, and at the top of his site, he's got 3 main sections of things that he does. But when you looked at the site, it only represented one segment. It only represented a segment that is one of his smaller segments, and it would totally ignored, his biggest segment that he wants to grow, which is online training. Because what he does, if I got this right, he does real driver's training, like behind the wheel stuff in person, does online training, which he can go out to a much larger audience, and then he also caters to an elderly market. So what I would do in that case is I would segment the top section of your site into those 3 buckets. I would section it into real world driving education, online driving education, and elderly. And then under those top main categories, I would list the services available very simply, so they can say, oh, okay, within the online structure, it covers these 3 things, or whatever that might be. But one thing that's really crucial for anybody that's developing a website is when your prospect lands on the website, they've got to immediately identify that they're in the right place. If they don't immediately recognize they're in the right spot, they hit the back button, and that's a bad signal to Google. It's a bad signal for you because there's no way you can convert. You didn't grab them. Remember the big idea, that attention-grabbing headline? You might want to have 3 of those, 1 for each segment. So, and I have this conversation all the time with realtors. Realtors, they're the worst at this because they all make the same mistake. You come to the site and it's about all this stuff, but it doesn't really have anything to do with what anyone's landing there for. If I'm looking for a realtor, I'm probably either looking to sell my house or to buy a house. So if you segment it out, like let's say on a real estate site, you had 2 sections right there front and center, buy or sell. I'm going to click on the one that I'm interested in, and I'm going to go into that segment of the site, and it's going to speak my language. Because if you split it down the middle and you start talking to all of your segments, you're not going to convert any of them. Think about that. What's important to a buyer of a house, right? A good deal, right? What's important to the seller? Getting max value, getting the most money for my house. So what happens when you start speaking either one of those? You drive the other guy off the cliff. If I start talking about, I'm going to get you the most value for your house, and a buyer shows up, he's like, I'm not dealing with that realtor. There's no way. I'm looking for a deal. I'm not looking for somebody that's trying to gouge me. And on the other hand, if you have a seller that comes on and you're talking buyer language, talking about, I'm going to get you the best deal, that guy's going to go, that's not the guy to sell my house. So at the end of the day, what's he got? He's pushed all of his customers off of a cliff on either side, and there's no one following him. That's the problem if you don't segment. You've got to speak the right language. So if you have multiple buckets like Don has, he's got multiple different people. If somebody comes there for an online course and it looks like he just does behind the wheel, they're out of there, not speaking their language. So it's really important to segment them right out of the gate. Show them the options at a glance. That way they can self-select and they can go into that section and you can speak their language. Really, really important. And as long as we're on this topic, I want to take that to another product that's available for you guys as part of this membership. It's not even at cost. It's free to you guys. I've got this for free for you guys, and it's called our automated sales attendant. If you want to do video, you want to put video on your site. Video is hot today. People just eat it up. Again, to get somebody to watch your video, you've got to have a hook. You've got to have a big idea to hook them in. But what the automated sales attendant software does, and you guys can find this in the bonus section of the site. If you go into the bonuses, you'll see where you can get the software from me. It's interactive video software. It's like really new to the market, but what it is, it's segmented video. So how it works is you create multiple videos that speak multiple languages for anyone that comes onto your site. And I'll use the real estate example because it's simple. They've got two segments right up front. So the video would start out and it would say, hey, thanks for coming to the site. I'm ABC Realtor, here to help you. Let me ask you a question. Because that's exactly what a really good salesperson is going to do. They're going to ask a question to figure out what's important so they can deliver the right message, right? If you look at any good salesperson, that's their formula, whether they know it or not. They ask a lot of questions. They listen. They feed the information back of exactly what they hear. So video now will ask the question. Let me ask you a question. Are you here today to buy a house or to sell a house? And then two buttons comes up right inside the video. And they have to click one to continue. So let's say they want to buy a house. They click the buy button. And now the next section of the video starts. It says, awesome, we have inventory on our site that's not available anywhere else, and we can get you the best deal. Let me ask you another question. What's your intent for the house? Are you a single mom looking to just kind of get by? Are you looking for low-income housing? Are you a growing family? Are you looking to expand and get a house that will support a growing family? Or are you a bachelor? You want a bachelor pad? Because that's three different segments to the same audience. It's a different language. If you start talking bachelor pad, the other two are going to be turned off. You start talking about, low-income housing, the bachelor pad guy says, I'm out of here, right? You're going to lose. If you don't emulate what works in the real world, you're going to lose in the online space. So that's what the automated sales attendant does. It creates those segmented videos for you. Well, it doesn't create the video. You have to create the video itself, but it will put them together and it will give you an interactive salesperson. Really, really freaking cool. So, and again, you guys don't have to buy anything. I give it to you. It's part of your membership because it weaves in, it segments so well in with the whole ACT program. It's exactly what I'm teaching you how to do. It can address objections by asking questions. Hey, if you're not ready to move forward yet, generally what I find is it's because of one of three reasons. Maybe it's too expensive. Maybe you feel it's not going to, do this or whatever it is, those three questions. Well, guess what? The three buttons comes up and they have to click the button to hit the next one. If they click the button to say, hey, it's too expensive, guess what? A section of the video can say, hey, you know what? We have a program, a scholarship program. We can see if you qualify for the scholarship program. You can get them on the phone, see if they qualify. It gives you a chance to sell them in person, build the value, and get the sale done. So it's, it's an awesome system. All you have to do is think about your sales process. How does your sales process work when it's on fire? If you've ever had a really good salesperson, if you've ever done a really good sales job, if you've done a presentation where you just knocked it out of the park, you closed the deal, think about the process. What made it work? And emulate that in the digital space. And I can almost guarantee you it's going to come down to a process like this. You're going to ask a question to segment them to find out what's most important to them. You're going to show them how your service or your product delivers the result to that problem. And then you're going to ask them if there's anything that would be standing in their way. and you're going to find out what their objections are. You're going to address and eliminate the objections, and then you're going to ask for the order. That's how most sales processes work that are successful. If you get to the end and they say, no, I'm not going to buy today, it's because there's an objection. If you've created the demand and desire, I guarantee you the only thing standing in the way of a sale is an objection. And if you have a video that can identify what their objection is and deal with it specifically, and you can overcome it and then ask for the order again, you'll probably get a yes, just like happens in the real world. So again, success in the online space has everything to do with success in the real world space. You know, if it doesn't work in the real world, I can almost assure you it's not going to work in the online world. You know, like, we talked about Glenn's program last week. He was offering too big a piece on the front end. Well, in the real world, they don't do that. You know, they don't offer you a car. They don't give you, a 1 pound box of See's candy. They give you one piece. It's instantly consumable. It's like a test drive. They put you in, they drive you around the block. It's instantly consumable. It creates demand and desire on contact, and then they want more. So that's how it works in the real world. That's how it works in the online world. As soon as you start doing shit that doesn't make sense in the real world, I guarantee you it's going to fail in the online, or in the offline and the online. So anyway, hopefully that makes sense. Be observant. Look at what's working, in the real world and replicate that, and you can automate that in the online space. That's your fastest path to freedom, is figuring out what works in the real world and how do I automate that so I don't have to be part of the equation anymore. That way you can make money, you can generate income streams without your personal interference. That's the way to do it. So, anybody, any questions, anything I missed or didn't cover, or any new stuff?
A quick question, John.
Sure.
So at the beginning, you were talking, you had mentioned about traffic, and you were going to get into, like what's the, granted, I know there's a lot that could be potentially involved, but if you're, what would you recommend is like the number one way to just be driving traffic?
Okay. That is really going to depend on what you're selling.
Okay.
It's going to depend on your audience. And that goes back to analysis, figuring out, who it is. Because, if you want to think about this in a graphical format, we're hunting. So we need to know what animal we're hunting and where they hang out. If your focus is on millennials and you're targeting Facebook, you're going to lose because they're not on there. They don't like Facebook. So when I look at traffic streams, I will say any traffic stream is good as long as your ideal client is in that stream. You don't want to put your net in a stream where there's no fish. That's fishing, and I hate fishing. Everybody sees the big fish behind me and they think I love fishing. I hate fishing. What I like is catching. I love to go catch fish. But fishing means you're going to drive around in a boat, you're going to look for something, and you're probably going to come home with a sunburn or a cold. And I don't like that.
John, did you just say millennials don't like Facebook?
Yes.
Really?
Yep.
So now where are they hanging out then?
They're more on Snapchat, Instagram, all the new stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. Facebook, there's been a lot of satires even that making fun of that.
I'm showing my age now. Yeah.
Oh no, I'm right in there. I'm if I'm not on any of the stuff the millennials are on, like Snapchat, I don't even have an account on there. And I don't discourage anyone from doing that or advertising on there. If that's where your audience is, that's not my audience. I could care less about that stuff. My audience is on YouTube, Facebook, and search. So if you're doing business stuff, LinkedIn ads are really good. You know, if your audience is not business owners or people that are business oriented, then LinkedIn's probably not a good spot for you. If your audience is avid YouTube watchers, you know, like Glenn, for you, I think YouTube would probably be a gold mine, because when people are looking for, you know, health related issues, YouTube, you know, that's a big hit. They'll go on there and look for videos to answer their questions. So you can advertise on YouTube. What you would do in that scenario is you would do a little research on YouTube and find out what videos are ranking highest for the particular keywords that you want to get your message in front of, and run a video ad right over the top of that video. You know, you could literally steal their traffic. So again, the best traffic for any one of you is going to be based on where your audience is. You know, and anyone, I would not just stick with one traffic source either. If you could find 3, 4, 5 traffic sources, I would go for all of them, because if you've got a converting offer, they all make sense. Paid traffic is supposed to generate new customers and revenue. So there's no reason not to do all of them. In fact, that's how I teach to scale. That's how you scale up your business. There's 2 ways to scale. There's either finding a new audience or making a new offer. You know, when I say make a new offer, remember I talked about segmenting in the first part of this call. You pick your most profitable segment first. But once you create a campaign that converts for them, then you go ahead and you duplicate that campaign and you switch the message. You know, you switch the message slightly and you change the message to match that audience. And now you have 2 converting campaigns. Make sure that they have the right traffic, and now you got 2 income generators, 2 revenue streams. So that's the best and fastest way to scale, is either finding more traffic sources or more offers. That's your 2 scaling points. As far as, you know, there's other forms of traffic too that most people don't think about. And I can assure you from my experience and my past and my background, these for me have been by far my most profitable traffic sources is through affiliates. And when I say affiliates, I'm not talking about just going and placing my stuff out in an affiliate network. I'm talking about a cross between influencers and in doing an affiliate relationship with an influencer. Like when I got my biggest exposure to the online world, some of you probably saw this, was when I did an affiliate deal with Ryan Dice. Ryan Dice, I went in and I did some private consulting for Ryan and Perry when they thought SEO didn't work anymore. You know, they were under the impression, they abandoned it. They had abandoned it for years, and they hired me to come in. I flew to Austin and I did some private consulting with them, and I whiteboarded out, hey, SEO does work. I go, you guys are nuts. I don't know who told you SEO doesn't work. It's different. It's, you know, as long as you've got searchers and you got offers, SEO is going to work. You know, there's no way around it. So they said, well, we got out of it because it got hard. And I laughed at them. Like, it didn't get hard. It just changed. It's just different, you know. So I showed them how it worked. They created a program around that, and they sold it for like $2,000. And they said on the back end, what we want to do is we want to have you make a program that will sell to the people that can't afford the $2,000. And we're going to push all that over to you. We'll do a webinar. And they sold it as the Rank Mogul. So if any of you guys saw the program in, I think it was like 2010, called the Rank Mogul, that was me. It was a program that I did to teach people how to do SEO in 30 minutes a day for 30 days. It was a 30-day program, 30 minutes a day, guaranteed that if you did that stuff, you would rank on Google, no problem. And I made the course, they pushed it out, they promoted it, and that has been the biggest selling thing I've ever done online. It was because it was an affiliate relationship. It was my content, their marketing to their list. They already had the list. They already had people that were interested in SEO. So if you can find people that already have a list of the people that are interested in your stuff, and you go to them and you say, hey, let's do a venture together. Let's do a webinar where I'll go on and I'll provide great content for your community, make an offer that you'll get a piece of. It's a good deal for them. They have the audience for one reason and one reason only. They built that list to make money. So if you give them a vehicle where they can make some money off their list and you make money in the process, that's a great thing. That's a win-win. So that's what I'm going to talk about next week when I talk about the influencer marketing. There's a really cool piece of software out there that will find the influencers for you, and it will tell you what their engagement rate is with their audience. So the ideal scenario, and I'll cover this more in detail next week, the ideal scenario there is to find a small audience, highly engaged. Because somebody with a small audience, they're not going to be looking for, they're going to be looking more to cut deals. They haven't hit the big time yet. What people think, and they do this completely wrong, they will go out and they'll look for somebody with a huge audience. They'll look like Paris Hilton, for instance. Paris Hilton at one point was doing influencer marketing for people on a paid basis. She said, hey, I'll do a tweet out to my audience and endorse you for, $10,000 or something, some outrageous amount of money. The problem with it is she had a huge list, but they weren't engaged. It was like a fraction of a percent would ever even see her tweet that went out. So you just wasted a bunch of money. First of all, her audience probably wasn't your segment, for one, and you paid a bunch of money to send it out into the ether and nobody saw it. So if you find a small list that is your audience that's highly engaged, that's a match made in heaven. You guys can put a webinar on. You can get on there. You can show how your how your product works, how it solves their problems, educate them in the process, lead them to an offer, and you can do that inside of an hour, and you can sell a boatload of product. It's an awesome way to do it. So let's see. Let me just look through my comments here. Okay, Don wants to know how you can look at a competitor's website and analyze what they're doing to be successful. If you look at the competitor analysis module, it covers a bunch of that. The tools that I use is a site called SimilarWeb. SimilarWeb is awesome for that. You can put anyone's URL in there and it'll tell you a bunch of information about what they're doing, about what their audience is, where they're showing up, the ratios of where their traffic's coming from. If it's on social media, it'll tell you which social media. It'll give you a graph of this much from Twitter, this much from Facebook, this much from YouTube. So you can see exactly who they're drawing in. Another one is SEMrush. I use that program a lot. That's the program I use when I do website evaluations. When I'm doing competitor analysis, I'll use SEMrush and SimilarWeb. Those are the two main ones that I'll look at. There's a couple other ones that are higher cost, like SimilarWeb you can use for free. SEMrush you can use for free on a limited basis. But there's other ones like What Runs Where. That will give you the entire blueprint of where they're advertising and how they're advertising and how much they're advertising. There's another one called AdBeat. AdBeat and What Runs Where, those are the two that will give you like an X-ray vision of exactly what they're doing in the ad space. And those are good if you're on a higher level and you want to get into those. If you're just doing this for one project, you might want to just pay for those services for like 1 month. Get in, do all your analysis, and then cancel it the next month because you probably don't need it. If you're doing this for clients, that might make sense for you to have those tools on an ongoing basis. But that's probably the best bet for that. Ted says espionage, like espionage, but I-spionage, espionage. It's ISPIONAGE. So that's another one. Let's see here. Got a few thank yous on RainMaker. Let's see. Here's one. Can we sign up for RainMaker now and use it at a later date, like January? Yes, you can do that. That's not a problem. Okay. Clicked on the RainMaker in your email. Got an error. Okay. I'll have to look at that. Cheryl, if you can send me more specifics on that, what you clicked on and what URL it went to, you can email it to me, and then I can look at that and see what's going on.
Hey, John.
Yeah, go ahead, Don.
Is it possible to rewatch this video?
Yes, absolutely. Everything that we do is recorded, and there's a section on the site for the archive, and it'll give you the link to go in. When we finish this call, it has to render out, so it usually takes a few hours before I get it up live. But yeah, all the calls, you can go in there and see any past calls, and there's a lot of good ones. I have an outsourcer that he goes through and he listens to each call, and then he kind of makes bullet points of the contents of the call. So you can look at the description and see what was being discussed on any call. And if there's topics that are of specific interest to you, you can just watch those, because it would take you a long time to watch through our archive. There's hundreds of hours of these kind of calls.
So where do I go on the site? What section?
Go under the conference call, the weekly call section.
Okay.
And it's the same page that has the info about this, how to get onto this Zoom call.
Got it.
And it's in there. There's an archive link. So,
okay, thank you.
And actually, I think if you look at the email that I sent out, the reminder, I think I've got a link right to it in there too.
Oh, then you can just do it that way. Okay.
Yep, you can just click it right there.
Great, thank you.
Okay, Cheryl, you were saying something and you were muted out.
Well, I was just saying that the link that I clicked on was in your email.
Oh, okay. I will go back and I'll look at it and see what was off.
The one you put here in this chat works.
Oh, okay. I'll go back and look at the email template and see if it's got a broken link in there. Thank you. All right. Anybody else before we wrap up for today?
Yeah, good stuff. Thank you, John.
All right. Awesome. Thank you guys all for being on here and participating, and all of your feedback and questions. Believe it or not, it helps everybody, because there's a lot more people that watch this call than are on the call. A lot of people are in different time zones, and we've got people even overseas and in other countries and stuff. And so keep asking questions. It's good for everybody.
Thank you, John. This was a great class today.
All right. Awesome. Well, thank you for being here again, and we'll see you guys next week. I will prepare to talk about the influencer marketing next week, so that'll be a good one too. So, all right, guys, have a great week. If there's anything, just shoot me an email or put it in the support forum, and we'll go from there.
Thanks, John.
Okay, I'll talk to you next week.